Hello lovies and welcome back to my channel. Today we are doing a 24-hour readathon and I'm super excited for it because I just get to sit down for a super long period of time and read. I couldn't ask for anything better, to be completely honest. So basically, if you haven't seen one of these videos before, I feel like you probably have, but in case you haven't, I set my timer on my phone for 24 hours and then whenever I take a break to eat, go to bed, if I have to go out and run errands, taking Osiris out, I'll pause the timer, and then whenever I sit down again and resume reading, I'll press start again. What I'm gonna try and do for this video specifically is split it up into 2 days. So we're gonna read for 12 hours today and then 12 hours tomorrow. The first book we're gonna start off with is The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. This is a super popular OG book talk book. I know, I am so late to the game. We're gonna try it today. It's a book that I've literally had on my TBR and sitting on my shelf for probably 3 years, to be completely honest. That's how long I've had this book. I recently came across this TikTok account where they basically make AI animations that go with different books, and the one that I saw was for The Cruel Prince. It just looked so good. It looks so up my alley, guys. Like everything about it, like the dark magic vibes, sold. This single video sold me, and then of course I kept on scrolling. They did one for Caraval, Shatter Me, they do a ton of ACOTAR ones, and it is such a cool account. I feel like I'm literally transported into my favorite fantasy worlds. Anyways, that's how Cruel Prince made it onto my radar once again. I thought, why not break the ice and finally read it in today's video. I've heard a lot of mixed things. A lot of people love it, but there's a lot of people who don't like it or see the hype around it, so I think it's gonna be a really interesting and fun read to kind of get into today. This tells the story of a girl named Jude. She is a normal human, and basically she's brought into the realm of fairies when she's very young because her parents are murdered. I guess she grows up along the fairies. She grows up around royalty, like princes and princesses. The youngest prince in this story is Prince Carden. He's the youngest and wickedest son of the High King. I'm pretty sure it's supposed to be a romance between him and Jude. I'm pretty sure we're gonna get a good juicy enemies to lovers in here. Again, I'm sold. I don't think I've ever read one that I don't like. And then this is part of a trilogy. The second book is The Wicked King, and then the third book is The Queen of Nothing, I believe. And then I just picked up a novella, How the King of Elfham Learned to Hate Stories. I'm pretty sure this is all told from Carden's point of view, and I think it may cover the 3 books. I'm not entirely sure, but like, look how beautiful. I also have this special edition that I got from Barnes a really long time ago, and I forgot about it until I revisited my Holly Black shelf over there. Look how cool this is. I also love the dedication for this. It says, for Cassandra Clare, who finally lured into fairyland. This is a super pretty edition. I don't know if I should read this one or if I should do like the normal paperback. Usually I find hardcovers kind of annoying to read. They're like heavy and like bulky. This one's got some like flimsiness to it that I kind of like, so I might actually read this one. Anyways, that's the plan for today's video. We're gonna get comfy, pick out the highlighters and tabs we're gonna use, and we're gonna start The Cruel Prince. Really quick, I just want to take a moment to thank the sponsor of today's video, which is Anchor. They were so kind to send over their Mega wireless charging station. It's a 3-in-1 charging station for your iPhone, AirPods, and Apple Watch. I have needed this in my life for so long. If I had to go one more day with a gazillion cords on my nightstand to charge all my devices, your girl was gonna lose her mind. It's literally been such a game changer since I got it. What's super nice about this is it actually charges my devices so much faster than like the normal chargers do. The Anchor Mega wireless charging station provides 15 watts of ultra fast charging speed. The typical one is like a 7.5 watt wireless charger in comparison to the Anchor one that is 15 watts. The Anchor Mega wireless charging station is totally compatible with your MagSafe Apple products. Did I mention it's a 3-in-1? So you can literally charge your phone, watch, and AirPods all at the same time. It's also Apple certified, made for your watch charging experience, so it can charge your Apple Watch Series 9 from 0 to 48% in just 30 minutes, which is so fast, it's insane. On top of that, Anchor also supplies anti-slip stickers in their boxes just to ensure stability during charging without compromising the functionality. The Anchor Mago 3-in-1 isn't just a charging companion, it's also just a really pretty aesthetic piece to have in your home. It's just so pretty and sleek. I feel like it looks so nice on my nightstand, on my desk. It really just goes with everything in my home. I'll have everything linked down below for you guys to check out. They have such a wide range of products to choose from, not only for your phone, but for your other devices. So definitely check them out using the link in my description. And without further ado, let's hop back in to the 24-hour readathon. Okay guys, we're gonna do our little halfway check-in into The Cruel Prince. I decided on the special edition because I just love the look of it. It's like flimsy, I don't know. But anyways, I made it to chapter 19, page 213. We're like, I want to say halfway through it. It's going. The story is, it's going. I have to say it's definitely a lot different compared to what I thought it was going to be. And I do feel just like the teeniest bit bored with it right now. It's just not what I expected, to be honest. And I feel like I was going into this expecting a really solid and fun enemies to lovers romance, but we're like not getting that. Like we're getting the enemies portion briefly, very briefly throughout the story. We are getting little moments between Jude and Cardan that is definitely showing their hatred for one another, but we're not getting like the romance aspect at all, and I'm just kind of like disappointed with that part. And it also seems like Jude and Cardan kind of have like their own separate love interest at the moment, so I think that's really interesting. I did do a little digging. It looks like a lot of people say that The Cruel Prince book 1, it's kind of just the setup of the story, and once you get into book 2 and book 3, things start to really get rolling. Things really start to get rolling with Jude's character and Cardan's character. The romance really starts to happen. The story just gets so much better as you keep going. So after reading some people's reviews and thoughts on it, I'm definitely like reading it now more with an open mind, because the first half of this book, I definitely was like, okay, I don't know if this book is for me. It's kind of boring. It's kind of falling flat for me. But after reading people's reviews, I feel like a little bit better about it. And the last chapter that I just finished, chapter 18, it kind of ended on like a crazy note, so I'm a little bit intrigued right now. But I have to say the first half of this book, it's just been it's been a struggle for me to keep reading and going. We're not giving up just yet. We're gonna keep going. We have this little bit left. I'm hoping something good happens in here. I don't know what's gonna happen, but I just found that in the back of this book there's deleted scenes from The Cruel Prince, so I feel like that's gonna be really fun to read and might make me feel a little bit better about this. But I am hoping that we get a little bit more Cardan in this last portion, because I feel like we haven't gotten too much of him. I feel like so far we've definitely just gotten the enemies portion of Jude and Cardan, which you can tell these two characters absolutely despise each other. Usually when I read enemies to lovers, I feel like I can feel the chemistry between them. Even though they hate each other so much, I could still tell that there's some type of tension. But with Jude and Cardan, I'm just not getting that. Like I literally don't feel any chemistry between the two of them at all. There was like one minor scene where I was like, this could be something. I do really like this storyline. I think it's really interesting. It's pretty different from other fantasy books I've read. I like the whole idea of Jude being just like a normal human. All the fairies have like powers and skills and just like these things that normal humans don't have. So it's really interesting to see Jude kind of adapt to their world and and see how she navigates it. Also, like Jude's whole storyline I think is really interesting, and how she kind of comes in to like the fairy world. I'm just like missing the romance part of it, but we have about 150 pages to go, so we are gonna wrap it up, see what happened. If this was like the end of the story right here and I had to rate it, it would probably be like a 2-star. So that's where I'm at right now. I just read. I just have to say this because this is absolutely insane. I'm on page 233. It's a wild chapter already, and I can tell there's going to be a lot that's happening in this chapter as we go on. But the scene I just read between Jude and Locke, and then the scene immediately following that, I'm like shook. Like, I feel like I knew something was up with Locke the whole story, and I knew he kind of gave me like a weird vibe. Like he was very fishy, basically. I like didn't see this coming, and I'm like totally shook right now. Hardcore giving me the ick right now. I like, ew. I literally don't know what to do with myself now that I've just read that. Like, okay, the enemies do be loving, and I'm here for it. Okay, guys, we finished our first book of the readathon. Cruel Prince by Holly Black. This has been on my TBR for the longest time, and I'm honestly so happy that we finally got around to it. I'm very conflicted right now on the rating. I'm leaning towards a 3.5-star rating. I enjoyed the storyline. I thought it was very interesting and different. Basically, I've never read like a storyline like this, and I did genuinely enjoy it. I thought Jude's story was super interesting. With that being said though, I feel like I was always waiting for something more to happen. Like, as much as I enjoyed the story, I feel like I was always sitting there on the edge of my seat being like, okay, like something crazy's got to happen in this chapter, right? And then like nothing would come. I was slightly disappointed with the romance aspect of this. I did read people's reviews, and a lot of people say that as you go on in the series, the romance does pick up and get better, and this is basically like our setup book to set up the whole story of the series. So after reading people's reviews about that, I definitely feel a little bit better, but nonetheless, I still was a little disappointed in the romance aspect in here. I was just expecting more, and I was a little upset because you guys know I'm a hopeless romantic, and I love my romance. The romance just wasn't romancing for me, so that was a little disappointing. Locke's character was driving me nuts the whole story. I could literally tell from like the first few chapters, Locke was just a total playboy. I was just kind of upset that he was very much a part of this story. The whole time I was like, he's like rubbing me the wrong way. His whole character, the entire story, was very sketch to me, and I was very surprised with the little plot twist we get with him towards the end, but at the same time I wasn't, because he was just giving me like weird vibes the whole time. So I was very fascinated with Cardan's character. I wish we got more of him in this. The enemies to lovers between him and Jude was definitely there, and then obviously the chemistry between the two of them I'm a little bit iffy on, because I feel like they don't really have chemistry, but at the same time it's kind of like the setup book, so I'm sure as I read book 2 and book 3 the chemistry will probably like come to life more. But that was a little annoying, especially because it seemed like Cardan was in love with somebody else, and it seemed like Jude was in love with somebody else. The whole like romance aspect of this just wasn't my favorite. There were like a few minor scenes that I did enjoy, but for the most part the romance in this book just like wasn't it for me, and I'm really hanging on to the fact that book 2 and book 3 will be better in the romance department. Nonetheless, it was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. It's a 3.5-star rating for me. I just wanted more romance. That's all I wanted. Look how cute this shirt is. I just got it in one of my book subscription boxes, and it's like a little cowboy reading shirt, and it says, wait, what does it say? It says saddle up with a good book. How cute is that? Are you kidding? Anyways, we are gonna keep going in our little readathon, and the next book I picked out is A Study in Drowning by Ava Reed. I've had this book since, I want to say September of last year it came out, and this is the Owl Crate Special Edition. I have to say, when I got it, I didn't want to pick it up because of the cover. I don't know what it is about this. It's just not my favorite, but the hardcover is very cute and pretty and aesthetic looking. The inside artwork is also absolutely stunning. I thought I'd add it to the readathon just because I've had it on my TBR for a few months now. I hear it's a really fun one, so this is our next read. We have about 5 hours left for today. The Cruel Prince took me a really long time to get through. It took me a little over 7 hours. I feel like that was just such a slow read for me. The story took so long to get into, but it also took so long to pick up. I feel like the first part of The Cruel Prince was very slow and just boring a little bit. So it took me a little over 7 hours to read that. We have 5-ish hours left. Our main character in this is Effie though, and she basically is chosen to redesign the estate of one of her all-time favorite authors. When she arrives at said estate, she finds another student already kind of staying there, and that leads us to our MMC, who is Preston. Preston is a literature student, and he is there trying to prove that Effie's favorite author is in fact a fraud, and he didn't write the books that he wrote. Right from the beginning, Effie and Preston don't really get along, so we're getting a little bit of an enemies to lovers in here, a little bit of an academic rivals in here. Effie and Preston team up to uncover the secrets in the estate, and as they keep going and going, they just keep uncovering a lot of crazy things, and there's supposed to be magic and all this cool stuff in here, so I'm really excited. This sounds like a really fun, darkish academia fantasy, which I could really go for right now. I feel like The Cruel Prince had a lot of dark vibes to it as well, and I did enjoy that part. So other than that, I don't know too much about it, but it's gonna be fun. I fell asleep yesterday before the 12 hours were even up. Unfortunately, I fell asleep with around 2 hours left. So this morning I woke up and I continued the 2 hours from yesterday. We've hit the 12-hour mark now, and I'm on chapter 12, page 235. We're a little bit more than halfway. I have to say, the beginning of this book was so boring, guys. It's so boring, and it was super slow, and that's honestly why I fell asleep last night, because I just couldn't get into it. And I think partially this is such a weird thing. It's just something I prefer as a reader. I prefer shorter chapters opposed to really long chapters, and I'm noticing in this book these are pretty long chapters. Some chapters are literally 30 pages long, and I just am finding myself dozing off very often. So that's what happened yesterday. I literally stopped in between a chapter because I was so tired and it was taking me forever to get through it. This morning I took a breather, had some coffee, and picked it up again. I have to say, I have hope. This story is definitely picking up now. I feel like the romance part, it's definitely a super slow burn, and I feel like this isn't really romancy. It's more fantasy than romancy, but there is a little bit of romance in here, and it is starting to pick up. Preston and Effie are definitely very sweet, likable characters. I feel like it's definitely worth the slow slowness in the beginning to get to their little moments because they're just like so sweet and innocent. You can tell that like Preston kind of has like a shyness to him, which I really like. The overall storyline of them trying to uncover the secrets of her favorite author and figure out if he's really a fraud, that's actually really interesting. I'm really interested in that, and I think it's a really cool storyline and it's super different, but it's just like the execution of it I feel like is super slow and kind of boring. Do feel like once you hit the halfway mark it does start to pick up a lot, so I have a lot of hope. In the beginning I was very iffy. I was definitely feeling like, oh my gosh, I don't know if I can finish this book. I might have to DNF it. We also have a little one bed side trope in here, which I didn't expect. And I kind of like that. It was really cute and sweet and innocent, and I just loved the whole chapter that was in. But we're on chapter 12 now. Things are definitely picking up. The mystery aspect of it is definitely picking up. I have theories about what's going to happen. I have theories about if her favorite author is a fraud and just like a whole bunch of things I do have ideas about. I don't know if I'm right. This is definitely keeping me on my toes. I don't know what's going to happen, and I don't know like how it's all gonna unravel, but I'm definitely really interested in it. What I didn't expect though is Effie and Preston are both staying like on the estate property, and there's just been so many like creepy little things that have kind of happened while they've been staying there. The author's son actually lives there, and he's so creepy and weird. He's just given really weird vibes. I definitely feel like he's a major part of this story. We completed the first 12 hours of the reading vlog though. I'm gonna start the timer up for the next 12 hours. We're gonna keep going though. We're gonna see what happens. I feel like this part of the story that I'm in right now is like the peak of it, and it's like really cool. We just finished up A Study in Drowning. After wrapping this book up, we're around the 14-hour mark. It took me a bit, guys. It really took me a bit to get into it and to kind of keep going with it. I think the last time we talked, I mentioned how slow it started, and I mentioned how I was very close to DNFing it. Like, that's how slow this book started for me. This is really interesting. I did enjoy it a lot. I just wish the chapters weren't so long. The beginning of it was extremely slow and just like a little bit boring, and well, I already talked about that because I told you guys how I literally fell asleep in the middle of reading a chapter last night. And then today it was really starting to pick up. Like once I hit the halfway mark, I think it was like page 200 something, I feel like the story really picked up. We were kind of getting into like some fun action in it, and then for some reason it just felt like it was kind of slowing down again. Like I don't know exactly why I was reading this at such a slow pace. There were just parts of this book I was extremely bored with, but on the other hand, there were a lot of really like good parts in this book that I enjoyed. And don't get me wrong, the writing in this book is extremely beautiful in my opinion, and I feel like there's a very poetic style and flow to it, but I was just getting so bored reading it. I liked the storyline. I liked the idea of them trying to uncover the truth behind this really famous author. I just feel like there could have been something more to it, maybe. I don't know. I'm not a writer. It was a little bit boring at first. It picked up. I did enjoy it. It got boring again, and then the ending of this book is actually what's going to knock it up half a star for me. When I read the ending, I was like, wait a second, this means something more than it's coming across as. So I did some researching really quick, and it turns out there was basically a bonus chapter added to one of the editions of this book, and the bonus chapter was basically like Preston's point of view. Like his dad had told him this story, and the wheels in my head were kind of going, and I was putting it together, and then I was looking at people's reviews, what people were saying about the ending of this book, and I really thought the way it ended was really, really cool. The deeper meaning to it, if you figure it out, is really cool. I'm landing on a 3.5 star rating, which I think is what I rated The Cruel Prince. 3.5 stars. I enjoyed the storyline. I did enjoy the romance in this. I wish there was a little bit more romancing, but at the same time it is a YA, so when it comes to YA, there's usually not not like a ton of romance. I don't know. I just wish there was like a little bit more to it. There's so many YA fantasy books and YA romances that I love and that I feel like do romance really well, but in this I just feel like I wanted more. Like I kept wanting more from Preston and Effie basically. The chapters were extremely long. There were some chapters that were 30 pages and that is just like too much for me. I don't like when chapters are that long because it feels like it takes me forever to get through the chapters. I feel like it also makes the story seem like it's dragging on, so that's like another reason why I don't like them. I really loved Effie's character and I loved watching her grow throughout the story. I feel like in the beginning she's very shy and insecure and just kind of afraid of the world. I feel like it was really cool to watch her character grow throughout the story, especially how she's like fighting for what she believes in and what she thinks is right. I just really loved it, and I loved that she fought back against all the terrible men in this story. I feel like it was a really good like woman empowerment type of story. The mystery aspect of it was really cool when it came down to it and we figured out like the truth behind the books and the writing. I loved that. I want it so badly to be 4 stars, but because the beginning of it was just so slow and I literally fell asleep during it, I'm gonna land on a 3.5 star rating. That's still a really good rating in my opinion. I enjoyed this. I thought it was very cute. I liked the academic rivals aspect to it. Remember the church bells. Remember what they stand for. It will just make the story that much more magical and awesome. So anyways, we finished A Study in Drowning by Ava Reed. 3.5 stars so far in the vlog. We have 2 fantasy books, both at 3.5 star ratings. I think for the sanity of me right now, we're gonna jump into a romance because if I read another fantasy book, I think I'm gonna read myself into a reading slump. So we are gonna pick up a romance. I have an idea of what I want to pick up. It was on my TBR last month. We still have like 9.5 hours to go, so we're gonna start our next read tonight and probably finish it tomorrow because I just don't see myself staying up super late, but we'll see what happens with this romance. I didn't even mention this. I have the Owl Crate special edition of this book, and something that I love about getting special edition books is that there's always really pretty artwork in them. Now that I read the book, the artwork means so much more to me. When I was reading the specific scenes for this artwork here, I kept flipping to the artwork and I just kept staring at it and literally just imagining the scene playing out, and it was so cool. Like I love special editions, guys, and then when this scene came up, it was so good. The reverse dust jacket, love this so much because when I was reading it, I was trying to imagine the author's estate that Effie and Preston were staying at. This is exactly how I imagined it. And then last but not least, I have to say this just because when we were starting this book, I had mentioned not being too crazy about this cover when I got it because there was just something about it that I was like, I don't know, kind of just like spooked me out a little bit. But now that I've read this book, this cover means so much. Oh my gosh, this is brilliant. The only thing I do wish they did with this, cool edges. I'm obsessed with this edition and I am so happy that I got it when I did. This was actually my first ever Owl Crate book, so I feel like that's really cool and special. The next book we are reading is a romance type of book, and it's by literally one of my favorite authors ever, and it is King of Sloth, which is a book 4 in the Kings of Sin series. This came out I think at the end of April. It was on my May TBR. I didn't get around to it, and so now we're here. We're reading it. This is all about Sloane and Xavier. They are a couple that I've kind of been rooting for since book 1 in the Kings of Sin series. I have just been so drawn to them because they're kind of giving off like Grumpy meets Sunshine vibes. They're giving off like a little bit of an enemies to lovers vibe. Maybe not like enemies to lovers, but it definitely seems like Xavier likes to get on Sloane's nerve. It seems really fun and exciting. Some of my all-time favorite romances are by this author, so I have no doubt in my mind that I will love this. And Sloane and Xavier, I'm just like rooting for them. As of right now, my favorite book in this series is definitely King of Pride, which is book 2. That's all about Kai and Isabella. Easily one of my favorite couples out of the entire series. I think they are so sweet, and it was also like the first like normal-ish type of romance I've read by Anna Hong, and I really liked that. Like I liked that Kai was just a really hardworking, nerdy, driven type of man instead of being like a violent, shady type of guy. Sloane and Xavier, basically Xavier is like some super rich billionaire playboy type of guy. I think he's like a trust fund baby basically, and Sloane is his PR publicist person, I think. She's basically trying to keep him out of trouble because it seems like he gets himself into a lot of trouble. It reminds me of Wrecked by Lauren Asher, which is part of the Dirty Air series. That's kind of the vibe I'm getting from this, except Xavier isn't an F1 driver. I literally think he's just rich. Like, I really don't know. The back of it says he's never wanted anyone enough to chase them until he met her. I have really high hopes for it. We've already gotten breadcrumbs of the two of them throughout like the first few books in the series. So I also got the Target edition, and I didn't know that the Target edition came with like artwork in it. So I thought that was really cool. Something I really love about her writing is her chapters are always between 5 and 10 pages max. And that is like the perfect amount for a chapter in my opinion. And I always fly through her books. They're always really fun romances that I get super addicted to very quickly. The one thing I have to say, and why I've kind of put it off since it came out, it's a very like chunky book. We're looking at about 440 pages. That's really, really long for a romance book in my opinion. I personally like when my romance books are 300 pages max. I don't know. I feel like romances that are over that amount usually just drag on and on. In my opinion, I just find that romances that are over 300 pages are like a lot. Anyways, we are gonna hop right into it and see what happens. Long time no chat. It's currently downpouring, so that's amazing. We got caught in the rain. We went for a little walk and it started downpouring. So I wanted to do a little update though on King of Sloth. We have around 6 hours left to go. Oh my gosh, we're like perfectly halfway through this book, which is crazy. And it's going, I guess. I don't know. I feel like I don't have too much to say, which is surprising. This is actually one of my most anticipated reads of the year. I am such a big fan of this author and I'm a huge fan of the Twisted series. I have very much enjoyed her Kings of Sin series so far. This one is really good. I like it. I think it's very cute, but it's not exactly what I expected. I think going into it, I expected more banter. I also feel like the point of the book where our two main characters kind of get together, I feel like it happened a lot sooner than I expected it to. There's a storyline to it, but it's not really anything crazy or special. Usually in her books, the stories are pretty crazy and wild, but I don't know. I can't even say that's like the reason why I'm just kind of like bored with it right now, because King of Pride is my favorite book out of the Kings of Sin series. And I feel like that story was a very easygoing type of story. Nothing super crazy happened in it, and nothing crazy is really happening in this one, but I don't know. It's just like not what I expected. Xavier is straight up just like a trust fund baby. He's not doing anything. I don't know, it kind of seems like Xavier doesn't have like any motivation or drive, and it's just like not my favorite. I don't know, it's cute, don't get me wrong. I am enjoying Sloane and Xavier's relationship and their dynamic, the romance part of it, and like the chemistry between our characters. It's definitely there. It's not as like intense or like as lovey-dovey as her books usually are. This is just so different compared to her other books. Like I can't put my finger on it, but something's definitely different with this, and I do feel like the romance in this isn't hitting as hard as it usually does for me, because I feel like something's off with their chemistry. It's good, it's just not my favorite. It's a little boring in my opinion. This very much can pick up and be a great book. It's just this first half has been dragging on, and it's just not it for me. It is starting to pick up a little bit more right now too, so I'm hoping it kind of stays like that. Okay, we finished King of Sloth. Finally, this book took me a hot minute to finish, to be honest. It took me a while. Usually I fly through her books pretty fast, but I think because this one was just a little bit longer, like I said, it's 450-ish pages. It took me a little bit to get through. So yeah, we finished it though, and I'm like actually really surprised and also very disappointed because I have been talking about Sloane and Xavier since the first book in the series came out, since King of Wrath came out. I was like, Sloane and Xavier. I feel like they're gonna be my favorite couple. I feel like that's going to be my favorite book. I literally couldn't have been more wrong. That's just not the case. They are not my favorite couple, not my favorite book. Unfortunately, I landed on a 3-star rating for this, which is my lowest rating of the vlog so far. It's really just because I found it to be kind of boring and slow. I thought the chemistry between our two main characters was kind of like okay. Like it was okay, but it wasn't up to par with her other characters and her other books, in my opinion. I just feel like she's written a lot better couples and romances. This is definitely my least favorite one that she's ever written. Xavier was okay. Like he was sweet and he was very kind and loving towards Sloane, but his character individually, like apart from Sloane, apart from the romance, it just wasn't doing it for me. I feel like the first half of the book, he didn't have like a lot of drive or motivation, and he quite literally didn't have any goals or aspirations, which kind of bothered me. That's just something I don't personally like. But what I did figure out is like the whole title, King of Sloth, because sloths are like super slow moving. I feel like that's symbolizing Xavier's character and how he was very slow to figure out what he wanted to do, figure out what his goals and aspirations were. But like the first half of this book, it was just so boring and slow in my opinion. It was bland. I'm not used to that with this author. That was a little disappointing. It was a 3-star. I have to say though, my favorite part of it, I feel like it's kind of what made it a 3-star opposed to a 2-star. All the cameos of other couples and characters from all her other books, and I love that so much. It was so fun kind of revisiting the twisted couples, even though we didn't get like them as couples. It was usually just one character from the book, but it was so fun and it made me so happy. That was definitely really cool and that stood out to me. So that's kind of what brought it up to 3 stars, just because I love how like the entire universe is like the same. Like I love how each book kind of like interconnects and how each couple kind of connects in some weird way. I am super excited though for her upcoming books. If you guys didn't know, I have a virtual book club. I have like one that's free on the app Fable, and then I do have one that's like a monthly subscription based one for Patreon. And in the Patreon book club, we're reading The Heartless Hunter. I've wanted to read this literally since I got it from Owl Crate because it just sounds so fun and definitely up my alley. It's basically a fun romantasy book based around witches. Our main character is Rune. She's a witch in hiding. Our other character, our MMC, is Gideon. He is like the most ruthless, scariest witch hunter there is. Heartless Hunter is all about Rune and how she basically turns into like this vigilante at night, the Crimson Moth, and she goes out trying to save like witches that have been captured. And then Gideon, who is our witch hunter, is kind of coming up on Rune's trail. He's finding out some weird things that's leading to Rune. So what ends up happening is Rune tries to woo Gideon in hopes of getting like information about witches, and then Gideon attempts to court Rune in hopes of discovering if she's like a witch in hiding or if she's just trying to help witches. So far, I'm really enjoying it. I think it is so funny that this person that Gideon has been looking for like for years has always just been right in front of him, like so close to him. So it's really interesting so far. I'm definitely enjoying it. I love books like this where it's a good solid enemies to lovers, but there's also something so fun to me when it comes to romantasy books when there's somebody who's like a hunter and then the person they fall in love with is the person they actually end up hunting. I don't know what it is, but those types of stories and tropes get me and I love them. It kind of reminds me of Powerless. We are going to spend the last 2 hours of the readathon reading more of Heartless Hunter. So far, it's reading so smooth and nice. We are going to wrap up the reading vlog 2 more hours, which is crazy. we have officially completed our 24-hour readathon, and I am so happy with how it went. We read a total of 3 books and kind of like half of this one. I really just love doing these challenges because, again, I get to sit down for like a super long period of time and just read. It adds like a little fun and excitement to it when I put like a challenge to it. Seeing how many books I can read in 24 hours is always such a fun one. I think next time I do it, I do want to try and see if I can read more than like 3.5, 4 books, because on average I always read like 4 books in my 24-hour readathons. I think there was one time that I read like 7, but there were like a ton of novellas in that one. But it was still cool to be like, oh, I read 7 books in 24 hours. So anyways, this went amazingly and we read some okay books. I'm excited because the 2 fantasy books that we completed, I did genuinely enjoy, even though they were a little bit on the slow side for me. I did really enjoy them. First book we read was The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. This was a 3.5-star rating for me. It started off super slow in the beginning, but once we hit like the halfway mark, it really picked up. It was a lot of fun. I am really excited to keep going on in the series because I have read that as you go on, the romance gets so good. Like, this was just the setup. Next up, we read Studying and Drowning by Ava Reed. This also started off very, very slow for me, and because of that, I ended up rating it a 3.5-star rating as well. Very, very slow start. It was kind of boring at times, a little bland, but again, once you hit the halfway mark, it really starts to pick up and get super exciting. The romance in it was just so beautiful. Like, the way Ava Reed wrote the romance in this was definitely a very poetic, pretty, beautiful type of way. I thought it was really well done. I do wish we had more romance in it, but that's because I love romance. Nonetheless, this was really cool. The story was really different. It was really cool. It got spooky at times. Not gonna lie, the Fairy King kind of spooked me out, and I feel like I did have like one nightmare about him. So yeah. King of Sloth by Anna Hong. This is such a flop for me. It's not a flop, but it kind of is in terms of like this author, just because she's one of my favorite authors literally ever. I love all of her books, all of her romances, her couple. There are some books of hers that I am like a little iffy on, but at the same time, I still loved them. And this was just one of my most anticipated books to come out this year. And unfortunately, it didn't hit for me. It was 3 stars, but I do know a lot of people out there who have also read this and they really enjoyed it compared to her other books. So who knows, maybe this book is for you. I just personally found it a little boring compared to previous books. I am really excited for the 5th book because I feel like the 5th book is going to be really, really cool. Last but not least, we have Heartless Hunter. I did not finish this in this video, obviously, but I'm loving this so much so far. It's definitely giving off, I don't want to say it because I don't want to jinx it. It could be a 5-star read. Definitely gonna be a heartbreaker. I can tell. I can just feel it in my bones. That's it for our 24-hour readathon. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you had fun. I know I sure did. Even though we didn't get any like 4 or 5 stars in there, the fact that I ended off with a book that I feel like could be a 4 or 5 star, I feel like that's still good. That's amazing. Hopefully I didn't just jinx myself. Thank you so much for hanging out with me in today's video. I love you guys so, so much. And I'll see you in the next one.